Ladies and gentlemen, if I can kindly ask you to come underneath the canopy, we're going to begin the funeral services of Mrs. Lois Zollo. Rabbi David Begun will be officiating. For those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure your cell phones have been turned off, and we welcome those of you who are online. Tradition comes when Jacob heard that Joseph died, tore his clothes. Only for a parent you do it over the heart. For a spouse, a sibling, even if God forget a child, it's on the right hand side. Blessing just says that God is a true friend. It's interesting, the last words that come out of the truth is the truth. It's spelled out. The first one, everybody has their own truth. You got a different mother than you. There's always a different. When we say together, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hey Yadam Abba, Tayan, Amen. Listen to the kid. You can wear this for a week. Just not on Shabbat. Take it on Friday night.
Anybody who wants to sit can find a seat.
Nancy and Don, you sit.
Rabbi, you have the list of people that are speaking?
I do.
Really? That's a lot of people.
So in difficult moments like this, the first place we turn to is traditionally the Psalms of King David for comfort and to comfort the mourners. On the back of this pamphlet, you'll see the words, inside, you'll see the words of the 23rd Psalm. I'm going to read them first in Hebrew, and then we can read them together in English. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Binos desha yarbitzeni al me menuchas yinahaleni. Nafshi yishovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al moves, lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shivtecha mishantecha, hema yinachamuni. Taruch lefanai shulchan neged sorurai. Deshante b'shem en roshi kosi rivaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yimei chayai, v'shavti b'veis Adonai la'erech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Just a few weeks ago, we read in the Torah portion about Abraham burying his wife, Sarah, and at that time, he composed a eulogy for her. That eulogy is sung every Friday night, traditionally on Shabbat at home, and it's the words of Eishes Chayil. I'm going to share with you a few of those words. Abraham writes, Eishes Chayil mi yimtza v'racha mipni michra. A woman of valor, who can find? Far beyond pearls is her worth. Batach balev bailo v'shalo lo yachsar. Her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, and he shall lack for nothing. Gemilasu tov v'lo kol yemei chayeha. She bestows goodness upon him and never harm all the days of her life. I'm skipping a little bit. Marvade masas Allah sheish v'argamon levusha. Fine covers she made herself. Linen and purple wool are her clothing. Oz v'hadar levusha v'tisach liyom acharon. Strength and splendor are her raiment. She cheerfully awaits the last day. Piha pascha b'chachma v'saras chesed al lashona. Her mouth is opened with wisdom, and the teachings of kindness is on her tongue. She oversees the ways of her household and partakes not in the bread of laziness. Her children arise and praise her husband, and he lauds her. Many daughters have accomplished well, but you surpass them all. Grace is false, and beauty is vain. A woman in awe of God, she should be praised. Give her the fruits of her own hand, and let her deeds praise her in the gathering places. So we're gathered here, the friends and family of Lois Zollo, to pay tribute to a woman, a kind, generous, talented woman who is a wonderful wife, a mom, a grandma, Aya, a grandmother, a sister, a friend, and my Aunt Lois. I remember as a child, I really used to look forward to going to visit Aunt Lois and Uncle Bert, and I was thinking about why, because I have those memories in my memory bank. They're there, and I was trying to think about it, and I think one of the reasons is because usually my grandparents were there, who of course I miss very, very much, and when I come here, I feel just surrounded by them and the whole family, because this is where all of our family members have been laid to rest. And also usually because there was a lot of good food there. That was the other reason. I think that I associated those memories with positive ones. My memory of Aunt Lois was of being a very classy woman, a very beautiful woman inside and out. And she always had a way of making me and everybody, I think, feel very special when you were with her and you were in her presence. But most of all, I think what Aunt Lois valued the most was her family. Family meant everything to her. Her lifelong marriage to my Uncle Bert, was legendary. Of course, you know, what gave her the most joy in her life was her children, Peggy and David, Peter and Debbie and Paul. Not everybody can be here today because of the unusual circumstances that we find ourselves in, but we will be hopefully hearing from everybody soon through the wonders of technology. And of course, her grandchildren filled her with love and joy. Jason, Liza, and Rob, Ben, Sarah, Jimmy, and Joshua, and her great-grandchildren. But the amazing thing is that it really extended well beyond her immediate family. I mean, just for example, how many of us who are, distant relatives have one of these? Okay, this says Judy, David. This has got to be 50 years old. This is from when. But not only did she, I'm her great nephew, right? But not only did her great nephews and nieces get these, but our children also got them. Her great nephews and nieces, my children all have these pillows, or at least I think eventually there became too many and it was hard for her to keep up. But for a long time she was, and it's amazing. We have these, we cherish them, they're wonderful, and they remind us so much of Aunt Lois. And I think she really touched everybody in the family. Even when I told my son Yosef, again, who's her great nephew, about what had happened, he became very sad and teary. This is his great aunt, but he had memories of going and visiting her and spending time with her, and she touched us all in a very, very deep way. But most of all, when I think of Aunt Lois, I think of Aunt Shirley and Uncle Miles, and I think of my grandparents, Norman and Jane. And they were, the three of them, those three couples were inseparable. Jane, Shirley, and Lois were the three matriarchs of our family, of the Clonick family. And I started thinking about the role of a matriarch, and what does it mean to be a matriarch in a family? And what came to mind was passing down family values, and the family culture, and the family history, keeping everybody connected to each other as being part of this bigger unit called the family, and loving everybody and leading by example, which I think all three of them did so wonderfully. It's amazing how sometimes often things line up with what's going on in the world and what's going on in the Torah portion of the week. This coming Shabbos, we're going to read the Parsha of Vayishlach, where we read about the passing of the matriarch Rebecca and the passing of the matriarch Rachel. And with that, the matriarchal era ends. That's the end of the period in the Torah called the times of the era of the matriarchs. And I was thinking about the matriarchs and thinking about how thousands of years later, we're still here talking about these women and how they affected us and impacted us. And that's what a matriarch is. A matriarch is somebody who makes an impact on a family, and that impact is felt for generations after they're no longer around. And I think about my grandmother, and I think about Aunt Shirley, and I think about Aunt Lois, and I know that even though this era of the matriarchs in our family has come to an end, today marks the end of that era. But I know that what they believed in, what they stood for, the values that they taught us, and the culture that they passed on to this family will remain part of all of our lives and our children and our grandchildren's lives for generations to come. Her traits and her qualities that we remember were many. Her loving, generous spirit, her commitment to volunteer work and charity. She volunteered in many different capacities, whether it was for Michael Reese Hospital, raising money for children with special needs, or the Brandeis book sale, teaching Sunday school, and whether there was a little dispute whether it was Sunday school or nursery school. But either way, she taught at Temple Shalom and volunteered there, and that was a big part of her life and what she believed in. She had a wonderful sense of humor, which I actually don't remember that well, but apparently she got funnier as she got older, and as her humor got a little racier, apparently she had more of a following for her stand-up, and her caregivers and everybody just loved her so much because she was fun to be with, and she brought light and joy and happiness into their lives. She was very gifted and talented and creative, and you saw the needlepoint. We all know about the needlepoint pillows. I learned about paintings that how she used to paint things, and of course her cooking and her baking and all these great talents and gifts that she had, but she never kept them for herself. They were always used as a vehicle to bring joy and happiness into other people's lives. So if she was going to use her talents and gifts, it would be to make a pillow to give to one of her descendants, or one of her nephews or nieces or great nephews or nieces. She was always willing to try something new, taking on bowling in her later years, traveling around the world. She was a very generous person who gave a lot of tzedakah, and in the end of the day, she was really a true matriarch, a woman who impacted the lives of many, many people, her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, her nieces and nephews, her friends, and the people that loved her. And that will be felt for many, many generations to come. So an era has come to an end. We've lost the third of our matriarchs in our family, and the matriarchal era has come to an end. But the lessons and the love and the values and the memories will fill us and guide us and teach us and lead us for many generations to come. May the soul of Lois, the daughter of Abraham and Evelyn, be bound in eternal life. Now I'd like to call upon Peggy, her daughter, to share some words with all of us.
I can't see. Motherhood. All love begins and ends there. Robert Browning. One of my earliest memories is standing in my crib in our apartment on Deming Place in Chicago and reaching my arms out for my mother. I remember how good she smelled. Part of it was Chanel No. 5, and part of it was pure comfort. I remember the click of her high heels in our front hall and how beautiful she looked all dressed up every Saturday night when she and Dad would go out with their friends. Some random thoughts in no particular order. Do it right or don't do it at all was one of her mantras. It's the thought that counts, another. She taught me how to raise a mob of 3 kids in Wilmette. She taught me how to call a taxi. She taught me how to take the L into the city. She taught me how to cook for a family of 5 and how to entertain for company. She taught me how to love and spoil a miniature schnauzer, and she taught me how to choose theme names for each one of them. She taught me how to be a good daughter, a good sister, cousin, and a loving niece. She taught me how to be a caring friend. Her many close girlfriends were her sisters, and so are mine. She taught me how to bake her famous lemon bundt cake and her fabulous chocolate fudge brownies. She taught me how to be an Agawam camper, a proud second-generation one. She taught me how to volunteer my time at DCC and how to work at fundraising. She taught me how to swallow a pill by serving me a single green pea that she insisted I eat. She taught me how to sustain a long marriage. She taught me how to be a grandmother. And finally, as a dear friend told me recently, that what she missed most when her mother died, I too will never call anyone mom again.
I'd like to call upon Peter, please, to come share some thoughts as well.
So first, let me express our heartfelt gratitude to all those wonderful individuals who took such loving care of Lois over the past many years. You truly are heroes. As you've heard from David and from Peggy, my mom was unique. She was multi-talented, creative, and ridiculously smart. She was also brave and tough. And that's the part I'm going to remember the most. I saw this trait during my childhood, but I saw it even more over the past several years. My mom has taught me a lot about aging, about how to do so with dignity, gratitude, and humor, and courage. When she moved to Sunrise Assisted Care all the way back in 2012, her life dramatically changed. She responded by saying, I don't have to shop, I don't have to cook, I don't have to clean, I have no complaints. 2 years later, she upped her game at Silverado. She became a leader, helping other residents who were struggling or new to adjust. She found her place there, together with a couple of special friends, by creating a community of fun and laughter. Yeah, this was a bit different Lois than we all knew, but she was always an organizer, and her toughness showed through. And when she moved into the Northbrook Inn just 1 year ago, she said, they're so good here. The food is delicious. I don't have to shop or cook or clean. I have no complaints. I was so fortunate to be able to see my mom for at least a quick visit pretty much every day over the last 8 years until COVID. No matter what we discussed that day, or even if we simply sat next to each other during the activity, when it was time for me to leave, I'd always look her in the eye and I said, Mom, I love you. And each time she'd always say right back to me without hesitation, tell Debbie I love her. Now leave already. I miss her already.
We're now going to call upon Paul Zollo, Lois's son, to share some words on video.
This is not only a sad day, it's strange. I gotta say, if you had told me you'll be at your mother's funeral, but you'll be on a computer with your son in California. Really? And that sounds a little different, but I'm glad we can be here, and Josh is just here too. My mom never used a computer. My dad tried to use it. My mom never. Like, she was a very old-fashioned woman in a lot of ways, and she taught us old-fashioned manners. I remember she taught me to get on an elevator, no matter what. If there's a woman there, you let her up first, no matter what. And she'd come up to a door and just stand there until you would open it for her. I like that she taught those kind of manners that she grew up with. She was born in 1929 in Chicago. A.J. Clonick and Evelyn, her parents, the third daughter, the third matriarch. I got to say, that part would surprise me too. If you told me, and you know who the rabbi will be? David Deegan. Really, and he's great. He's a wonderful rabbi. It was beautiful, and what Peggy and Peter said. Uh, my mom was very close with both of her sisters and their husbands and their children. We grew up with all of them. We were always at Aunt Shirley's house, seeing Aunt Jane, and every holiday. Very close family. Uh, she went to UCLA. Told us many times, you know what UCLA stands for? You can leave anytime. A joke she said many times. She didn't love it there because it was so far away, and she took the train. It was a long ride, and she got appendicitis. She said before she graduated and came back to Chicago, and she met a man named Bert Zollo on a blind date set up by Skip Grossman, and they got married. But she just told me recently, I didn't know this, that her father, Papa Clonick, had my dad checked out thoroughly. He really made sure he was okay, coming from a good family. And in fact, he did. They went to the same temple show. That was important. He turned out to be a pretty great guy. And they were really in love. And she was very beautiful. 1929 was the same year Audrey Hepburn and Jackie Kennedy were born. And those were her fashion models. She kind of looked like them. And, they had hats, and she was very fashionable. And my dad, they got married in 1950. Very beautiful wedding at the temple, and then at Papa Clonick's home. My dad always said it was a beautiful wedding. There was room in the kitchen for my parents. I was glad for that. I like to repeat my dad's jokes every few years if I can. But then they moved into Aldine, just down the street, just a few doors down from where she grew up. But in 1960, my dad wanted to move to no man's land. He wanted to move to Wilmette, Illinois, out in the suburbs. It was far then. And my mom, she went for it. She was a city girl, and she stayed a city girl. She didn't learn how to drive, and she was the only mother that didn't know how to drive. But she waited until we were all done with high school. Then she did learn how to drive, but she didn't have to drive us very many places. As I mentioned, she had a lot of friends. I'd come home from school, she'd be playing mahjong, and all the ladies would be there. They're all smoking and drinking a black coffee or diet right, and all talking at once and really loud. And it was exciting, the loud. And she had a lot of talents. She was a great rhymer too. She was great with writing songs. She was really a great wife, and she really made a special home for all of us and for my dad. And they were both very regimented. Dinner at 6 o'clock every night, 5 days a week. Friday night, Sabbath night, special dinner, and then Saturday they'd go out every Saturday night. And she'd make plans with a different couple every Saturday night. I used to think that was normal for people to do that. On Friday nights, only on Friday nights, she would make him a martini. And in later years, my mom would say, I make him a martini every night. No, it was just on Friday nights, but I would carry it up the stairs, and it was pretty good. I would sip it all the way up. And as others said, she had a very comfortable, blessed life, but she did a lot to be with my dad, and she put up with a lot. She went all around the world. Some of those trips she loved, some like India famously, she hated, but she was there with my dad. And to the end, we call them the Bickersons because they bickered a lot, but they loved each other. They'd come to Los Angeles once or twice a year, and they were romantic. They'd sit in the back seat and hold hands. And my dad, once my mom was in the hospital, and I went to stay with him, and he missed her. It was the only night we drank together because he really missed her. So they had a really special life together. And if you had told me my mom would live to 91, I'd be surprised because she never exercised in her life. She loved steak and hot fudge sundaes. So it shows you don't have to do those things. You can eat that, and you live to 91. And she had a beautiful life. And just to wrap it up, because I know it's cold out there, though it's beautiful here. There are few celebrities that she cared about more than one, and I got to meet him. And pretty much anybody else I'd mentioned, she didn't care. But Alex Trebek, she loved Jeopardy, and she was great on Jeopardy. And I think it's interesting. Less than a month after Trebek's death, she's gone. That's enough. She doesn't need this world past that. But it's amazing she lived this long. So glad I could share that with you and share this with everyone today. And thank you, David, for being a wonderful rabbi for my mom. I know she would cavil that you're doing this today. Miss you, Mom. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. That was beautiful. Okay, our next person who's going to speak is Jason Miller, Lois's grandson. Jason's also going to be speaking remotely, so you can tune into the phone.
All right. All right. Hi, everyone. As I think we've all experienced, this is a little bit different, but everybody being here and just being able to see your names on a screen means a lot. Gathering to mourn and to celebrate. As the first of the 7 grandchildren, I had the distinct honor and privilege of being given the important task of deciding what my grandmother would be called. Of course, she had already made a decision. She thought it was made, at least. It was going to be Nana. But to my 1-year-old self, apparently, she didn't look like or sound like a Nana. I pointed at her and I said, Aya. And that's who she became. It stuck. So for me, for her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, she's Aya. And if you ever saw Aya driving her car, you'd see her go by with a proud license plate that read Aya. Of course, you never wanted to see Aya driving a car. Whether you were inside the car or you were somewhere outside the car, you weren't safe. Driving was never one of Aya's strengths. What was one of Aya's strengths, one of her unique gifts, which you've already heard about, was her culinary skills. I'm sure all of us have our own special favorites, whether it was the desserts, the immaculate chocolate frosting that my mom talked about, her brownies that these two love so much. My own favorite of her desserts was her incredible lemon cake, or the many varieties of meat and potatoes that Papa loved so much. We all have our favorite. But for me, my single favorite was the most important dish for the most important of Jewish holidays, Thanksgiving. Aya's stuffing will always be Thanksgiving for me, trying to out-eat my cousins until we couldn't walk. And while many of you have tried to replicate it in recent years, your imitation stuffings they pale in comparison to Aya's stuffing. When Annabelle was born, we would come back to Chicago so she could visit and see family. And Annabelle would toddle around the house on Locust, which that house was not a toddler-safe environment. And Annabelle would climb all over everything, including Aya and Papa. She would climb right on them and grab their faces. I was convinced she was going to pull down some artwork or knock over a sculpture. And no matter what she was doing, when I looked at Aya, there was just joy, a pure look of joy in her face, just watching her great-grandchild walk around and almost destroy her house. Bringing the kids to see her or sending her new pictures was the one thing I could do that always made her happy. In recent years, she even enjoyed showing them off to everyone around when we would come to town to visit. And sometimes she was talkative, sometimes not, but she loved just watching them be them, create mayhem, play on the playground, run up and down the halls, knock things over in her room. They could do no wrong. She surrounded herself with the pictures of all of us, her loved ones, so that whether we were near or far, whether we were near or far, she could always see us. And we will do our best to maintain those lessons: good food and great family. We miss you and we love you, Aya.
I'd like to call Ben Zollo next to come share some words about his grandmother.
Hello. I wanted to share with you something that Aya wrote for her father for one of his birthdays. As the rabbi mentioned, Aya had talent for rhyming, and often wrote poems or songs to celebrate her family. This poem hung framed in her wall at Northbrook Inn. And she asked me the last time I saw her in January to read it out loud. She read most of it along with me. Aya wrote this a long time ago about her father. It easily could have been about her. So I'm just going to read one stanza. And she titled it Littlest Friend. Dad, you see, as our line grows longer, our devotion and love for you grows stronger. Each of us thanks you each day of our life, and also our deepest thanks for your wife, for helping us throughout the years and being with us through gladness and tears, for showing us, helping us, teaching us too. A million thanks we give you. Books it would take to be able to say all that we hold in our heart today. So please look at our gift now that we're through, and remember always our love for you.
Okay, and finally, we'd like to call on Liza Miller to share with us a song that she'd like to sing in memory of her grandmother.
Hello. Thank you all for being here with us today. I would be so happy to see you. In such a challenging year, we have so much to be grateful for. Our family has remained safe and healthy. Aya has left her legacy and taught us all so many things. Most of all, how to love. And that love has many languages and is unique to each individual. This is not the shortest of songs. So I encourage you to take this time to connect with the space that you're in, with yourself, and with your loved ones if you have that privilege to be physically together. This is not a concert. Don't feel like you need to watch me on the screen. You do you. I certainly would. I chose this song today because it deeply resonates with me. And I imagine with many of you, I hope. It explores the mystery and magic of life and love. Now I just have to cue up the song. However near or far we are, in physical distance, we are always connected. Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way. Now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way. Now it's just another show. You'll leave 'em laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Just one more verse. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way. And now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads. They say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've lived a life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all, at all. I've looked at life from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really do know life now for all.
Thank you, Liza. That was beautiful. If we can all rise, I'll recite the memorial prayer. Again, I'll do it in Hebrew and then I'll do it in English. El malei rachamim, shoichem b'amroimim, hamitzei menucha nechon al kanfei hashchina, b'malois kedoshim u'toivrim kezoi harakia, mazhirin es nishmas, Lois bas Avraham, shehalcha l'olama, ba'avur shenachnu mispalin bad haskaras nishmasa, b'gan eden tehei menuchasa, l'chein bal harachamim yastireh b'seisur knafav, lo lamim, yivitzor b'tzor hachayim es nishmasa, Adonai hu nachalosa, v'sanuch b'shalom ha'mishkava, b'noimar, Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament upon the soul of Lois, the daughter of Abraham and Evelyn, who has gone to her world and whose memory we pray. May her repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage, and may she repose on her resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen. Now we're going to have an opportunity to participate in a very special mitzvah, which is the mitzvah to bring somebody to their final resting place. The way this is going to work in just a moment, everybody who would like to will have a chance to come up and shovel some of the earth into the ground. And do we have any Eretz Yisrael? First, we start off by putting a little of the earth from the land of Israel into the ground, which Yehuda Rabbi Polstein is getting for us, and then we'll have the opportunity. And just the custom is that after you've done your shoveling, you put the shovel down instead of handing it to the next person, because of the fact that we don't like to hand tragedy from one person to another. So we'll take an opportunity now to fulfill that mitzvah.
Ladies and gentlemen, memorial contributions to the Special Kids Foundation. That information is on your service folder, and for those of you who are online, that information is on our website. or to your favorite charity. As the rabbi mentioned just a moment, you can come forward and place earth into the grave. And for those of you online, we're going to turn off the volume and you can still witness the burial. Thank you for attending.
I didn't. Still owe me those. All right. Been a while.
Wants to participate, then they're going to put the cover on. I'm going to wait till the end.
I'm wearing.
It could be on this side. I bet you they're on this side. Because Goldman's here.
Who is Goldman? You know who Goldman is? My grandma, my grandparents. Yeah, my grandparents.
Well, this way, it's a camel line up. You can watch. Peter?
So there's a tradition, I don't know, David, did you explain it? A tradition that the mourners walk through a loving embrace of their family and friends. So we have a small little loving embrace over here. So you guys can go together, and then we'll say, you can repeat after me. Actually, I need the English. I know the Hebrew, but I don't know the English. Okay, I'll do the Hebrew. Okay. So, Hamakom Yinachem Eschem Besoch Shar Avele Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May Hashem, where's the English? There's no English. May the Omnipresent comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Israel.